Outwitting the Devil, Part 1. In 1938, Napoleon Hill finished a manuscript. Think and Grow Rich had been published the year before. It was selling. He was, by every measure that mattered in his industry, at the top of his career. And then he took this new book and buried it. It stayed buried for 72 years. Not lost, not misplaced. Withheld, first by Hill, then by his family, then by the foundation that held his estate. It didn't reach the public until 2011, long after everyone involved in the decision was dead. The reason usually given is that the people closest to him were frightened of it, not because it was obscene, not because it was dangerous in any obvious way, because of the form he'd chosen. Hill hadn't written an ordinary self-help book. He'd written an interrogation. The subject being interrogated was the devil. And the strange part isn't the theater of it. It's what the devil confesses to. You'd expect grand evil, corruption, ruin, something dramatic. Instead, he describes something that sounds almost boring. A habit, one that most people have, most of the time, without ever noticing. Hill called it drifting. Whether you read the devil religiously, psychologically, or simply as a device isn't really the point. Hill uses the character as a container, a way of gathering everything that gains power the moment a human being stops thinking for himself. Fear, procrastination, indecision, dependency, destructive habit, unconscious conformity. He puts them all in one chair and makes them answer questions. And the central question of the book is this: if you wanted to control a person without touching them, how would you do it? You wouldn't need chains. You wouldn't need force. You would simply need to stop them from ever deciding where they're going. Because without a destination, almost any road becomes acceptable. Picture someone standing at a crossroads. 10 roads ahead, he doesn't know where he wants to end up. So he takes whichever one looks easiest. Then another. Then another. Years pass. And eventually he looks around and asks the question everybody eventually asks. How did I end up here? The uncomfortable answer is that he never chose. He drifted. That distinction between choosing and drifting is the whole foundation of the book. A drifter can be extremely busy. That matters because we tend to picture aimlessness as laziness. It usually isn't. You can answer 50 emails, clear 20 tasks, work a 10-hour day, and end it no closer to anything you consciously decided was worth your life. Two people are rowing. One knows which shore he's aiming for. The other rows wherever the current takes him. Both are working. Both are exhausted by evening. But only one of them can tell you whether the effort meant anything. Activity is not direction, which is why drifting hides so easily inside productivity. Your calendar can be completely full while your life has no shape at all. Modern psychology gives us a fairly unglamorous explanation. The brain is an efficiency machine. Anything you repeat often enough gets handed off to automatic processing, because conscious deliberation is expensive and there isn't enough of it to go round. This is mostly a gift. You don't want to rediscover how to brush your teeth every morning, but the same mechanism has a flaw built into it. A pattern can become automatic long before you've decided whether it's a pattern worth having. Wake up, check the phone, react, consume, work, distract, sleep, repeat. Somewhere in there, repetition quietly replaces decision. And here's the thing almost nobody realizes. Drifting doesn't require bad decisions, it only requires postponed ones. Avoid an important decision for long enough, and your circumstances will make it for you. This is where Hill introduces the idea the rest of the book hangs on. He calls it definiteness of purpose. At first it sounds like ordinary goal setting. It isn't. A definite purpose works as a filter. When you know what you're building, decisions stop being arguments and start being tests. Does this move me closer? Does this habit strengthen me or drain me? Does this relationship support who I'm trying to become? Is this worth my attention? Without a purpose, none of those questions have an answer. So everything competes on equal terms. The urgent beats the important. Pleasure beats patience. Other people's expectations beat your own judgment. Think about walking into a supermarket with no idea what you need. Every aisle can pull you. Every offer can persuade you. Every product is a possibility. Now walk in with a list. The supermarket hasn't changed at all. Your relationship to it has. Purpose does the same thing to a mind. It doesn't remove temptation. It removes temptation's right to negotiate with you. Hill goes further than most people expect. He argues the drifter is vulnerable because he isn't using the one privilege Hill thought was uniquely human, the ability to think independently. And that isn't the same as intelligence. Intelligent people drift. Educated people drift. You can memorize thousands of facts and never once examine the assumptions steering your own life. Independent thought means checking what enters your mind before you let it stay. Where did this belief come from? Is it actually true? Do I hold this because I examined it or because I've heard it enough times? Am I chasing this because I want it or because I was taught to want it? That last question is the dangerous one, because a lot of what people spend their lives pursuing was never really chosen. A certain career, a certain lifestyle, a certain definition of a successful life. Imagine spending 20 years climbing a ladder, only to find it was leaning against somebody else's wall. That's drifting at a much higher level. You're moving, you're progressing. From the outside, you might even be winning. You've just never asked whether the game deserved your life. Fear runs through the entire book as the devil's primary tool. Hill lists 6. Fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of losing love, fear of old age, fear of death. For self-mastery, one of those deserves more attention than the others. The fear of criticism, because watch what happens when approval matters more than judgment. Before acting, what will people think? Before speaking, will they approve? Before changing direction, how will this look? Eventually, the crowd doesn't need to control that person at all. He carries the crowd around inside his own head. Picture someone trying to walk forward with dozens of invisible ropes attached to his back. Each rope is an opinion. Parents, friends, colleagues, strangers online. The problem was never having relationships or listening to advice. The problem starts when approval becomes the compass, because now your direction depends on who's watching. Hill's non-drifter isn't deaf to other people. He listens, he observes, and he learns, and then he decides for himself, which requires something much rarer than confidence. It requires being able to sit with uncertainty. There's a reason this is so attractive, and it isn't weakness. A definite decision creates exposure. The moment you say, "This is where I'm going," you can fail at it publicly, you can be judged for it, you can find out you were wrong about something you staked years on. Drifting protects you from all of that. If you never fully commit, failure stays ambiguous, and ambiguity is comfortable. I could have done it. I never really tried. I'm waiting for the right moment. Maybe one day. The unfinished dream protects the ego because its potential never gets tested, which is why procrastination is rarely a time management problem. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding what the task might reveal, that the work isn't as good as you hoped, that someone might reject it, that you're still a beginner, that succeeding would require becoming a different person. So you wait. And waiting feels harmless because nothing bad happens today. But drifting has never destroyed anyone in a day. It works by accumulation, one avoided decision, then another, one wasted hour, then another. 1 year spent waiting to feel ready, then another, until the temporary becomes familiar and the familiar becomes normal. Don't ask whether you're successful. Don't ask whether you're busy. Ask something worse. How much of this was actually chosen? Your first hour awake? What gets your attention? Your work. What are you building beyond this week's obligations? Your circle. Who is shaping the way you think? Your habits. Which ones happen without a decision? Your direction. Could you describe it out loud? And you don't need every detail worked out. That's another trap. Definiteness isn't certainty. Okay. You can know which mountain you're climbing without knowing every rock on it. What matters is having enough direction to tell movement apart from wandering. This changes what the word means. Discipline isn't fighting yourself all day. The deeper version is building a life where fewer things are left to impulse. A person with no direction has to negotiate constantly. Should I work? Should I train? Should I save? Should I start? Should I stop? Every day is another debate. Purpose ends most of those debates in advance. The decision was already made before the difficult moment arrived. So back to the crossroads. The drifter reaches every junction and asks, which road feels best right now? The non-drifter asks, which road goes where I decided to go? Two questions, two completely different lives. And maybe that's the most useful way to read Hill's Devil. Not a creature waiting somewhere outside you. Not just the name for everything that benefits when you stop steering. Fear, impulse, social pressure, distraction, habit, comfort, indecision. None of them needs to beat you in open combat. They only need small pieces of your attention, surrendered daily for long enough. Until you wake up one morning having traveled a very long way without ever deciding where you were going. That's drifting, and recognizing it is the easy part. Because once it continues long enough, it stops behaving like a habit. Your environment starts reinforcing it. Your fears start defending it. Your mind starts justifying it. And eventually the prison stops feeling like a prison. It simply feels like you. Part 2 is how that happens.